Consider the tribal chief who visited Medina. Some of you know about that tribal chief, I hope. Consider the tribal chief who visited Medina, converted to Islam in the presence of the Prophet, not only for himself, but on behalf of his people as well. In this example, the historical record does not tell us that the chief had any real instruction in Islamic ethics. To all intents and purposes, he was now a Muslim. And they presumably, his people, the chief, is visiting Medina from where he normally lived, where his people are. This chief visits Medina, where the Prophet is. He converts to Islam in the presence of the Prophet in Medina. And he does this, and we have no record that he had any real instruction in Islamic ethics. To all intents and purposes, he was now a Muslim, but one without the Quranic knowledge possessed by some Muslims, but not all of the Prophet's companions in Mecca and Medina. I'm saying that not all of the Prophet's companions in Mecca and Medina were knowledgeable in Islamic ethics. Not at all. The chief returned to his people, told them the good news, and they presumably became Muslims collectively based on the chief's conversion. Two Muslims, male and female, marry, have children, raise the children. Those children are automatically Muslims, aren't they? The parents identify the children as Muslims. You say the same thing about Christians and Jews and whatever, right? Say the same thing. So you parents converted on our behalf. Well, you converted and we inherited that conversion. So we are Muslims because my parents are Muslims. And we are Jews because my parents are Jews. And we're Hindus because my parents are Hindus. This chief converts, and he converts on behalf of his people. And they didn't come individually and say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. He did it for them. In time, please follow me here. In time, their Islamic knowledge increased, and their personal behaviors became increasingly in compliance with Islamic ethics as it was imparted to them. But that is not to say that in their lifetimes they made anything like a clean break with their pre-Islamic mores and even some of their earlier beliefs. It's not to say that. I'm sure that some of you can think of similar examples of conversion to Islam and what followed that conversion. How did knowledge of Islamic ethics and moral values increase during the lifetimes of early Muslims and successive generations? How did knowledge of Islamic ethics and moral values increase during the lifetimes of early Muslims and successive generations? Traditionally, Islamic ethics and morals were transmitted formally by three important personages. Traditionally, Islamic ethics and morals were transmitted formally by three important personages: parents, school teachers, and imams of mosques, or prayer leaders. These three: parents, teachers, imams. As one would expect, the extent of parents' knowledge depended largely on what they or their parents had learned. Teachers could teach students what they had learned from their teachers, obviously. But it needs to be stated. Like parents and teachers, imams of mosques were overwhelmingly not considered highly trained Islamic scholars or ulama. Overwhelmingly. Imams of mosques were not considered highly trained Islamic scholars or ulama, except perhaps by their unlearned fellow worshippers. You follow me? You follow me? Moreover, I have seen no indication in the historical sources that most Muslims in any city or town worshipped in mosques or attended lectures in mosques in the pre-Islamic or modern period. Mosque attendance has been low historically. You think everybody in Mecca prayed after their submission? You think everybody in Cairo prays? You think every Muslim goes to the mosque and they hear the adhan? They run out and do that wudu. Pew, and you know what PEW, you know the Pew. The Pew Council. How many Muslims in the census they did in 2011? How many Muslims in the United States are regular mosque attendants? What is it, 37%? You know what that means? 37%, I think it is. Regular attendance of mosques, Muslims in this country. That includes you. 37%. You know what that means? It means 63% don't. You think every Muslim fasts Ramadan? Every Muslim has never fasted Ramadan. No. Every Muslim, come. No. This is, sister, not every Muslim does it, right? Not every Muslim, even in the time of the Prophet. Sometimes, you know, in the time of the Prophet, sometimes some of those men used to be told, you know, get to the mosque. Did you hear the adhan? Get to the mosque. I was in Mecca once, and I was in a jewelry shop. I was in Mecca once, and I was in a jewelry shop. And I was buying some jewelry, and you know it, I heard the adhan, but I'm coming in from Cairo, and listen, I know that you don't have to run to the mosque just because you heard the, you know, you can go, take some time before the prayers actually start. So I can finish buying my jewelry in this shop in Mecca. I can finish buying and then go out and go to the mosque. You know what? The mutawwa. You know what the mutawwa is, right? The morals police. The morals police came by and told we're in Mecca. I'm in Mecca. Came by and told the owner of the shop, Salah, prayer. Ikhfil, close your shop. Close it. You know what they only told me? Let's come back after prayer. We'll finish this. And I was there doing research in one of the archives in Mecca. And, come back and we'll finish this deal. But you'd have to go to prayer. Now you go to Damascus, Syria, you go to Baghdad, Iraq, you go to Cairo, Egypt, or whatever. Nobody's doing that. Nobody tells you, you have to go to, etc. I say they're not doing it today. And I say that they were not doing it in the 9th century either. That's my point. So who's going to be the vehicle for the transmission of Islamic ethics? But one of those, all three of those who are the vehicles for the transmission of Islamic ethics, they themselves are not necessarily specialists or very knowledgeable in Islamic ethics. Neither that prayer imam, nor the parent, nor the teacher. That's my point. So what are the people likely to be? I don't have to say, right? Muslim societies have had low or medium literacy rates. The situation has improved significantly in modern times. Literacy rates are higher, there are more readily available publications, and there are schools imparting Islamic knowledge. Yet, it should be borne in mind that an important factor in the acquisition of knowledge is the desire for it. For more than 14 centuries, Muslims who learned more than the basics of Islam have been few compared with the number of Muslims in majority Muslim and minority Muslim communities. Few. The Muslims who got beyond the basics have been few. Few. This leads one to the conclusion that most literate, even educated Muslims have not been and are not personally interested in Islam as a pursuit worthy of systematic or organized study. It may come as a surprise to some Muslims that the majority of Muslim rulers, whether caliphs, kings, prime ministers, or presidents, did not have and do not have now strong backgrounds in any of the Islamic sciences, though most of them were and are considered observant Muslims. So you pray 5 times a day, President so-and-so, Prime Minister so-and-so, Caliph so-and-so. Muslims have, Muslim caliphs. When you think of caliphs who were really Muslim scholars, I mean, who really were Muslim scholars, you can't think more than one. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, or Umar II. That man was very well. But all the rest of those caliphs, you know how many caliphs the Abbasid period has from 750 to 1258? 37 or 39 caliphs. Not one. Who was a scholar? This is why, I tell my students, a caliph is not a pope. A caliph is a political leader. That's what he is. That's what a caliph is. He's not a pope. He's not even a scholar. He doesn't have any parchment from any seminary or whatever. Many of them just inherited their positions. Or they killed their brothers or cousins before the position. I am reminded of a Muslim student whose parental origins are in one of the largest Muslim countries. I am reminded of a Muslim student whose parental origins are in one of the largest Muslim countries and one of whose parents is a highly respected professional. After completing my Muslim people's course, I used to teach, I teach just until last semester, in other words. I taught every year a course that entitled Muslim Peoples. This young Muslim student took my course, and after completing my Muslim Peoples undergraduate course last semester, the student told me that she learned more about Islam in my course than she had learned in Quranic schools of Islamic centers and mosques. She didn't mention how many Quranic schools she had attended, but she used the plural. I learned more in your course. 3 months. 3 months. So 1 semester. 3 months. We met twice per week. 10:05 to 11:30. Every Tuesday and every Thursday. 10:05 to 11:30. Say an hour and a half. Which means she was in the classroom with me for 3 hours a week. And you're telling me that in these 3 months, you have learned more about Islam than you have learned since you were a little girl. Going to Quranic schools in mosques and Islamic centers. I know that she has lived in 4 different cities in these United States. I know she has. I know her father. Right? Now, the first third of my course, Muslim Peoples, the first third of my course was a brief overview of the Prophet's life, Islamic beliefs, the Prophet's life, Islamic beliefs, practices and institutions, and the sources of Islamic law, Sharia, the legal schools of Sharia, and philosophy. The first third of my course was that. No, hearing her comment did not make me overjoyed or proud of myself. I was, however, pleased that she had benefited from the course. She confirmed my deductions from my study of Muslim history, that few Muslims studied Islam beyond the basics. Thus, most Muslims, like adherents of other faiths, had and have but a smattering of knowledge about Islam, irrespective of their national, educational, social, and economic backgrounds. Most Muslims have only a smattering of Islam. Most of those 1.5 billion have only a smattering of Islam, I aver. Only a smattering. To summarize, the sources of Islamic ethics consist of a variety of pre-Islamic and Islamic instructions about good personal, public, and political moral behavior. As the respected Islamic legal scholar Wa'il Hallaq has shown in the case of Islamic law or the Sharia, the Arabian Peninsula and adjacent lands were multicultural before the rise of Islam in the 7th century. The spread of Muslims outside the Arabian Peninsula facilitated further incorporation of ideas from ancient and medieval sources. Looking at later times, it is indeed arguable that the foundations of modern Muslim ethics remain indebted to the sponge sieve process of both Eastern and Western thought, and the continuing critique and innovation of Muslim ethical thinkers in the broadest sense. Islamic ethics evolved over a long period of time, more than a millennium. Quranic and Sunnite proscriptions admonitions and commands were disseminated by numerous ulama and non-scholars in their writings and speeches. Islamic ethics was never a static corpus of instructions. Rather, it evolved as new circumstances and interpretations of sources were presented. Based on what I have said, it is clear that a 20th century Muslim is necessarily an ethical person to one degree or another. The phrase "to one degree or another" is important. I thought I'd make you smile at least. Likewise, Muslim communities are Islamically ethical to the degree that their constituents are ethical. In both cases, that of the individual and the community. In both cases, the individual and the community, the degree to which they are Islamically ethical depends on how much of the ethics of Islam they have imbibed. And that in turn depends on how much Islamic ethics they have been taught and acquired without formal instruction, and the degree to which that learning is applied individually and collectively. Some Muslims think that being a Muslim by the book, so to speak, involves a serious and in some cases an undesirable identity change. I'm almost finished. Some Muslims think that being a Muslim by the book involves a serious and in some cases an undesirable identity change. A Muslim American friend once assured me that he wanted to be a good Muslim, but he did not want to be an Arab. Thus he equated Muslimness, if that is an acceptable word, with Arabness. I need not mention here my response. Suffice it to say that I wondered whether he was aware of the fact that serious adoption of any religion or ideology necessarily makes the observant adopter more like the original people of the adopted faith or ideology than the person who was not. Furthermore, everyone naturally has several identities. A person may be at once a plumber, a parent, a musician, a practicing Roman Catholic, and a Chinese. That person identifies differently in different circumstances, but never as a Nazarene, Palestinian, or an Italian. I'm a Chinese Catholic. I'm a Chinese plumber. I'm a Chinese parent. I'm a Chinese musician. I'm a practicing Roman Catholic Chinese. And I identify, in different situations of the same, in different, you go to work, he's a plumber, he goes to work 8 hours a day. What do they care about while he's plumbing? Whether he's a musician, or who asks him whether he's a parent, or who asks him whether he's a Catholic. But when he goes to church, he's not a plumber now. He's not identifying as a plumber. He's identified as a Christian, as a Roman Catholic. So all of us have multiple identities. And some of those identities are operative in certain situations and not operatives in others. Pure and simple. Pure and simple, right? But that Chinese is not a Nazarene. Just because he's a Catholic, he's not a Nazarene. He's not from Nazareth where Christ walked, you know. And he's not a Palestinian. He didn't come out of Palestine. And he's not an Italian, though he's a Roman Catholic. He's not an Italian. To be sure, again, Islam has not eradicated totally the identities of Arabians and other Arabic speakers. It has not eradicated all of the identities of Arabians. And it has not eradicated all of the identities of other peoples who speak Arabic. The Iraqis didn't speak Arabic in the time of the Prophet. They do now. And they have been for centuries. The Egyptians didn't speak Arabic before Amr ibn al-As came across the peninsula in 639. And it took 3 centuries for them to even speak Arabic. It took 3 centuries. That until Arabic and Islam became more importantly, Islam, for most Egyptians to become Muslims. How long did it take? 3 centuries. Some say 3 generations, some say 3 centuries. I prefer the 3-century argument. It was not until the middle of the 9th century the 10th century that most Egyptians had become Muslims. To be sure, Islam has not, this to me is very important, has not eradicated totally the identity of Arabians. So that you come from the peninsula does not necessarily give you anything, in my view. Yeah. Okay. It doesn't take away from you either, but it doesn't add anything. So you go and study in Arabia, or you go and study in Pakistan. I mean, you just in Arabia because, oh, the Islam came out of Arabia, you know, I'm going to the source. And really? You might learn more in Pakistan. Perhaps. Or Turkey. To be sure, Islam has not eradicated totally the identities of Arabians and other Arabic speakers, or the hundreds of millions who converted to Islam from a myriad of ancestries. All of them practice Islamic ethics in varying degrees. All of them. Despite all that I have said, I wish to end with the assertion of one of the most prominent scholars of the 20th century. The eminent Egyptian Islamic scholar Sheikh Muhammad al-Ghazali, who died in 1996, may Allah the Most High be merciful to him, wrote in the 1970s that Islamic ethics is the basic element, the motif or the meat of Islam, and is fundamental to it.